I'd like to welcome you all that are here in person and watching on the World Wide Web to our March Lunch and Learn. I am Lori Troe. I am president of the Salina League of Women Voters, and we are going to be talking about voting, about the Salina League of Women Voters, and a whole bunch of other things. And Diana Tarver, one of our members and board members, is going to be our speaker. And take it away, Diana.
Thank you. I really am excited and pleased and very grateful that the League is allowing me to stand and represent today. We are celebrating. We're celebrating 100 years of the League of Women Voters. We're celebrating 100 years of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, which gave women the right to vote. And we're celebrating Women's History Month this month. So we are going to start how the amendment to the Constitution was passed, the history of the League in Kansas, and the history of the League here in Salina. And then we are going to talk about some current events, some things that we have going on this year.
The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. 100 years ago, Congress proposed and 36 states ratified the 19th Amendment, ensuring women could exercise their right to vote. The League of Women Voters has created a traveling exhibit about the history of the march towards suffrage for Kansas women. Visit lwvk.org for locations of this free exhibit and learn about the history of women voting and running for public office in Kansas.
A lot of the history that we're going to show on these slides today and talk about is in that presentation that the video just talked about. And that is available at lwvk.org. And it's available all over Kansas for you to go and see. What I'm going to tell you today is only a small part of the history that leads us up to what's going on today in our country. This year marks the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, which gave us the right to vote. Kansas was a critical state in this long struggle for the passage of the amendment, which to this day has relevance for our political future. Kansas was at the forefront. In 1859, three feminists, Clarina Nichols, Mother Armstrong, and Mary Tenney Gray, attended the Wyandotte Constitutional Convention, representing Shawnee and Douglas County women's groups, to urge the inclusion of equal suffrage in the new state of Kansas's Constitution. They were not allowed to speak, but they were granted the unprecedented right to acquire and possess property and to retain the equal custody of their children. In 1861, the first Kansas state legislature gave women the right to vote in school elections. In 1867, women's suffrage and Negro suffrage were put on the ballot in two separate referenda. This made Kansas the first state in the Union to consider women's suffrage. Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony traveled the state campaigning for ballot. Both proposals lost. And because of that initial campaign in this state, one of the colors of our traditional suffrage movement, the gold, is representative of the Kansas sunflower. In December of 1868, Senator S.C. Pomeroy of Kansas introduced the Federal Women's Suffrage Amendment in Congress. In 1879, the first women's suffrage organization in Kansas, the Equal Suffrage Association, was established in Lincoln, Kansas. In 1887, municipal suffrage was won in Kansas, allowing women to run in office in city elections. On April 4th of that year, Susanna Medora Salter was elected mayor in Argonia, Kansas, becoming the first woman mayor in the nation. And for the next 12 years, Oskaloosa, Cottonwood Falls, Rossville, Elk Falls, Baldwin elected women mayors. Canton, Edgerton, Iowa, Haddam, Pleasanton, Gaylord, Ellis, Jamestown, and Beatty soon followed. In 1893, a constitutional amendment to grant the women's suffrage in Kansas was again defeated. But in 1912, Kansas finally adopted a constitutional amendment granting women full suffrage 8 years before the national ratification. In 1919, Jane Brooks of Wichita was elected chair of the new National League of Women Voters. That was 6 months before the amendment came into law, and she came home to Kansas and set about establishing the first local League of Women Voters in the country. Looking at what happened in the nation, the National League, beginning in 1920, February 14th, the League was founded. That was before the amendment was ratified that year. The League was officially founded in Chicago just 6 months before the ratification and when women won the vote. Formed by suffragists of the National American Suffrage Association, the League began as a mighty political experiment designed to help 20 million women carry out their new responsibilities as voters. When the 19th Amendment was ratified in August of that year, the final hurdle for ratification by all the states was won, and it became law. As anti-suffrage groups still fought to oppose ratification, suffrage leaders mobilized to continue their pressure campaign, and finally, it was established. The Constitution had a new amendment. In 1944, the UN established, and the League of Women Voters was named an NGO observer. After World War II, the League carried out a national public support campaign at the request of President Franklin Roosevelt to establish the United Nations and to ensure the U.S.'s participation in that effort. Following the campaign, President Harry Truman invited the League to serve as a consultant to the U.S. delegation at the United Nations Charter Conference, one of the first organizations that was officially recognized by the UN as a non-governmental organization. The League still maintains that observer status today. In 1957, the League became more active in issue advocacy, and the need arose for separate organization to hold activities like voter registration and information. The League of Women Voters Education Fund was established in this year to encourage the active and informed participation of citizens in government and to increase the understanding of major political policies. In 1972, shortly after congressional passage of the Equal Rights Amendment, the League voted officially to support equal rights for all, regardless of sex. The League followed this vote with a nationwide pressure campaign that continued through the 70s. That national campaign ended in 1982, but the League continues to push for ERA ratification today. In 1976, we won an Emmy Award. The League sponsored the first televised presidential debates since 1960, for which we received the Emmy Award for Outstanding Achievement in Broadcast Journalism. During the 1980s, the League sponsored televised general election presidential debates, as well as presidential primary forums in 1980, 1984, and 1988. The debates focused on nonpartisan issues with the main goal of informing voters. But as candidates demanded increasingly partisan conditions, the League withdrew its sponsorship of general election debates in 1988. Leagues around the country continue to hold debates and forums for local and state offices today. The League's grassroots campaign for national legislation to reform voter registration resulted in passage of the National Voter Registration Act, also known as the Motor Voter Bill. The goal? Increase accessibility to the electoral process. The Motor Voter Bill enabled citizens to register at motor vehicle agencies automatically, as well as by mail and at agencies that service the public. In 2002, when the 2000 election exposed many problems facing the election system, the League began to work on election reform, working closely with Civil Rights Coalition. The League of Women Voters helped draft and pass the Help America Vote Act, which established provisional balloting, requirements for updating voting systems, and the Election Assistance Commission. The League provided a dedicated website for voter information as early as the 1990s. In 2006, the League launched the next generation of online voter education with vote411.org, a one-stop shop for election-related information. Today, Vote 411 provides both general and state-specific nonpartisan resources to the voting public, including a nationwide polling place locator, a ballot lookup tool, candidate positions on issues, and more. In June 2019, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that partisan gerrymandering cannot be solved by federal courts. In response to that, the League initiated People-Powered Fair Maps, a coordinated effort across all 50 states and DC to create fair and transparent people-powered redistricting processes to eliminate partisan and racial gerrymandering nationwide. February 14th, 2020 marks 100 years that the League of Women Voters has empowered voters and defended democracy over the last century. We've fought for election protection, democratic reforms, equal access to the ballot, all while maintaining our commitment to nonpartisanship and fostering an informed electorate. As we look into our next 100 years, we aim to build power for the next generation of women leaders and voting rights activists. That's why we're celebrating our 100-year milestone. Back in Kansas, I want to go backwards in history a little bit, back to the passage of the amendment. The Kansas League was, before that, urging all local leagues to appoint court visiting committees to monitor cases in which women and children were tried. In some of the other efforts that the League has undertaken that the Kansas League has undertaken during these years, they supported the League of Nations membership and membership in the World Court. Carrie Chapman Catt came and visited Wichita and Topeka Leagues and spoke in the role of the U.S. in international affairs and world peace. The League discovered millions of Kansas taxpayer dollars on deposit in Kansas banks were earning no interest. League action resulted in substantial benefits to the taxpayer by mandating interest on revenue deposits. In 1967, at the suggestion of the former Governor Alf Landon, the League invited heads of all farm organizations, the Executive Secretary of the AFL-CIO, the State Chamber of Commerce, the Kansas members of the National Chamber of Commerce, and Senator Frank Carlson to a state convention. Appearing on the same platform at the same time, each spoke about the Kennedy tariff legislation. As Landon later said, that broke the issue wide open in Kansas. In the end, all the Kansas delegation voted for and influenced members of Congress from other Midwestern states. In 1974, the League began working to preserve part of the state's natural heritage in the Tallgrass Prairie Park. And membership in 1964 was opened up to men. In 1984, the League members in Kansas and Missouri assisted in hosting the presidential debate between President Reagan and former Vice President Walter Mondale in Kansas City, Missouri, sponsored by the National League. In 2000, the League took position in support of the living wage. In 2013, the SAFE Act, Proof of Citizenship Law, went into effect in Kansas. The ACLU, with the League of Women Voters as plaintiffs, filed suit against the then Secretary of State, Chris Kobach, in 2016. Federal District Court Judge Julie Robinson found that the law was unconstitutional as it had erected substantial obstacles to voter registration by people eligible to vote per the National Voter Registration Act of 1993 and the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. As I said at the beginning, a lot of that history is on our traveling exhibit, and it'd be great if everyone had an opportunity to see that. I know it'll be at the State Fair at our booth, but there are also a lot of other locations in Kansas where you can find that traveling exhibit, and on all three of the websites, the local, state, and national leagues, you can find a lot more history than what has been read here today. So what's the local league been up to? I'm not going to go through our history. In 2019, some of the things that we did: we hosted 6 lunch and learns on foster care, National Memorial for Peace and Justice, the Salina Downtown 2020 Downtown Update. How do we get our news with a panel of local journalists, USD 305 Equity Council, and vaping. We had our annual meeting with the new city manager, Mike Schrag, as the speaker. We had 6 members attend this annual State League convention in Manhattan. We hosted our annual summer potluck with the state's Jacqueline Lightcap, who spoke about her experience at the United Nations as one of the observers during the National Women's Conference. 6 members and friends attended the Centennial Celebration kickoff in Wichita. We participated in the Tri-Rivers Fair Parade. We participated in the public parlay at Astra discussing voting and democracy and women's suffrage. We held 10 voter registration events in the community, hosted that traveling display along with Kansas Wesleyan University and the Smoky Hill Museum. We co-hosted a candidate forum with the Chamber of Commerce for the November City Commission and school board elections. We continued our Saturday postcard project at Ad Astra, and we held our annual Fall Issues Forum on solar energy for your home. And we're not tired. We're ready to do more. We do have lunch and learns every Tuesday of our second Tuesday of the month. We are still writing postcards to our legislators, and we invite you to join us at Ad Astra every Saturday afternoon. Our annual meeting is coming up on the 18th of April. Everyone is invited to this. It will be at Maddie's New Chill and Grill. And if you look on our league website, the local league website at lwwsalina.org, you can get the exact times. The suffragists and all of their friends are going to be marching in at least 3 parades that we know of so far. There's question marks there because I'm not sure of the dates of all of them, but we'll begin with probably the fair parade. People-powered fair maps. The National League of Women Voters has decided that this is our signature campaign for the next 2 years. First, we want to make sure that all people get their census filled out properly. We want everyone counted in Kansas because how many representatives we have in Washington depends on that. All the funding for, not all the funding, but a lot of the funding for our school, our local, county, and state government depend on the census. And so it is vital that everyone fill out that. Secondly, you see that nice little thing that I'm holding, trying to be still so the camera can see? Can you read what that says, somebody?
Power.
Power. That is actually 5 gerrymandered districts in this country. There's a whole lot more that look just that bad. People have cut up districts in order to create power for one party or the other, one candidate or the other, one topic or another. And that has left a lot of people without a say. So we are trying to get these brochures into the hands of legislators, express to them how important it is that we have a nonpartisan, fair redistricting And that is an effort that's going on all over the country. These brochures are available at the back table, and I really encourage you to pick one up, take it home, talk to the people you know, and then pass it on to the people making decisions. The second big initiative that we've got going on is a few weeks ago, we learned that the local Salina League had been given a grant by the Greater Salina Community Foundation as a part of the YW Legacy Fund. And that grant is purely to help us get the vote out this year. Part of what we want to do with that grant is partner with as many different organizations and people as we can in this community to do just exactly that. We find that with the League's March to the Polls effort, the NAACP's Stay Woke and Vote effort, and the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship You the Vote effort, we have built-in partnership and have decided to make that official for this year, for this election year. We want to empower all the citizens of Salina, especially those who have been disenfranchised, who have lost faith in our process, who believe that their vote doesn't matter, that their voice isn't heard. We want to give them back their power. And so those three organizations, and as many others as we can find, are going to partner to do just that. Register voters and then get them to the polls, or get them absentee ballots so that they can vote. So that's our logo. And you're going to see it on buttons and t-shirts hopefully really soon. A list of some of the things that we have planned to do under this umbrella project. We will set up a voter registration table at your event. So if you have a community event, you have a civic group, you have a club, you have a church function, any place where you are all gathering, we're willing to come and set up a table and register voters there. One of these is going to be, well, actually three that are upcoming are going to be at the community conversations sponsored by the people for jail reform in the next 3 weeks. And I meant to get my phone out and have those dates, and I don't. I'm sorry, but they will be up on our website later today. And probably during question and answer, we have people who can give you those dates. I also know that we have at least one other civic event and a church group that we're going to be at registering. So that's just the beginning. We've been out doing this for a few weeks now, and we're going to continue until November. But the big important one, we want to train you to register voters. It is so much easier and so much better if you talk to your friends and your neighbors and the people in your group and get them to vote. You can not only get them registered, it's so easy, but you can also be the one to help make sure that they can get there when the time comes, or that they get the ballot in the mail and get it mailed back. This reaching out to our other community members is a vital way in which all community organizing happens. And so we're going to take full advantage of that. As you saw, we're planning on being in some parades. We're going to march, and we hope that you'll come join us. You can come in costume, be a suffragist, or you can come in your jeans or your work clothes, but come support this effort and make sure that all of your friends and neighbors see how important voting is to you. Give them back the idea that as American citizens, we can make a difference. We're going to be canvassing certain precincts in Salina that have had traditional low voter turnout and low voter registration. That's also going to take a whole lot of manpower. So we need volunteers. On the back, no, not on the back table, right here, I have a sign-up sheet. We'll pass around and ask If you're willing to be involved in either sitting at a league table to register voters, or you would like to go out with us when we canvass, would you put your name on that sheet so that I can contact you?
If they're watching on TV, is there an email they could send something to?
Yes, absolutely. As I said, this is a project partially of the League of Women Voters of Salina. So go to LWV Salina, all one word, .org, and on our website you should see that great logo, Salina Votes. That's our umbrella for the election year. And there you can get more information about what's going on, and we are going to have training for people who have never registered voters, and those training dates will be there at the website too. I think our next slide has some training dates on it. Yes, good. So I'm going to add to this. First, tomorrow night, across the street at the McKenzie Center at 5:30, we're going to be there to train you if you would like to learn how to register voters. This will only take an hour. We're going to go through the how to training fast because it's easy. We'll talk to you about online voter registration, and we'll talk about getting a vote by mail ballot. And then we'll talk to you about how to make sure that the people you register get there to vote and get the information that they need in order to be educated to vote. March 16th, next Monday, we will be again across the street at the New Jerusalem Baptist Church at 7 o'clock to do a voter registration training. And on April 4th, we will be at the McKenzie Center again at 10 a.m. That's a Saturday.
I would like to say that if you're listening, watching on the streaming TV on Salina Media Connection, it doesn't necessarily take training to register yourself. You just go to ksvotes.org and you can probably do it yourself. I wanted to make sure that anybody watching knows that they can go to ksvotes.org.
Okay, ksvotes.org. Very easy process to get registered to vote. Any other questions?
You mentioned the Saline County Citizens for Jail Reform meetings.
Mm-hmm. 3 registration tables that we know of right now that will be set up are going to be at the Saline County Citizens for Jail Reform events that are on, Amy has dates, March 16th at 6 p.m. here in the Prescott Room at the library.
And then April 2nd at 6 p.m. at the Church of the Cross on Rush Street. And then April 9th at 7 p.m. at St. John's Missionary Baptist Church on Chicago.
Thank you all for coming, and thank you to the League for all the work that you do.